Riley Reynolds, Jason Bunderson, James Lamborn. We're back at it a little bit. New video to introduce a candidate running at the state level coming up in our primary. I want to first start out with a little monologue that I think has got some things that we need to think about just a little bit. Are we sunshine patriots? Are we members of the church of the lukewarm? Warm enough to feel righteous, but never hot enough to stand when it costs something? Because the days we're living in demand more than casual conviction. They demand courage. They demand clarity. They demand that we stop pretending neutrality is noble when the very foundations of our freedom are under pressure. We have a responsibility, a sacred one, to seek out leaders who will uphold and defend the Constitution, not undermine it. That duty isn't political, it's moral, it's spiritual, it's tied to the very conflict that began before this world was formed. Remember the warning: to have been on the wrong side of the freedom issue during the war in heaven meant eternal damnation. If that was true then, why would it be any less serious now when the same principles are at stake? This is not a season for retreat. It is not a season for silence. It is a season for disciples who understand the weight of agency, accountability, and covenant. And the warning continues: any Christian constitutionalist who retreats from this battle jeopardizes his life here and hereafter. Seldom has so much responsibility hung on so few so heavily. If that doesn't wake us up, what will? If that doesn't stir something deep in our bones, then maybe we've forgotten who we are and what we promised God we would defend. And for those who hold the higher priesthood, the charge is even more sobering. If members of the Melchizedek priesthood allow the U.S. Constitution to be destroyed, they not only forfeit their rights to the priesthood, but to a place in the highest degree of glory as well. This is not symbolic language. This is not metaphor. That is covenant level accountability that we're all responsible for. So the question no longer is, do we care? The question is, do we care enough to act, to stand, to discern, to defend family, faith, and freedom with the same resolve we once promised in a world before the one we now live in? Because the time for half measures is over. The time for hoping someone will carry the burden is over. The time for assuming the battle will wait for us is over. There's no time left to wake the sheep. It's time now to wake the other lions. So, ladies and gentlemen, as we go into this next phase of this conflict, here in the state of Idaho, we have some major primaries coming up, and we have some major corruption at the state level, no different from the federal level. And we have major donors from outside the state that are funding some of these situations, and we need to start stepping forward and holding them to account and replacing those who are corrupt with somebody who will uphold the Constitution, in our opinions. So Jason and I here tonight have Jason Lamborn in the studio. So I'm going to give the mic over to Jason, let him introduce himself and the things he stands for, and then we're going to have a little conversation that you can listen to as we're interviewing and talking about these things. Jason?
That would be James Riley.
Sorry. Hey, James. James
This
Lamborn.
is Jason. There can't be a second one of him. That's right. Well, thank you guys for having me. I'm James Lamborn. I'm running for the Idaho State House of Representatives, Legislative District 28, Seat A. I have two opponents, the incumbent Rick Cheatham and another gentleman by the name of Mike Seville. I am running a constitutionalist, Christian conservative, free market capitalist, America First, law and order, traditional, Reaganite, MAGA, authentic Republican campaign. All those adjectives are important because they are directly the opposite of both of my opponents. That I see the Constitution as the greatest document, the United States Constitution, in human history, behind only my 1611 authorized version King James Holy Bible. Without that Bible, there would be no Constitution. Without the federal Constitution, there would be no Idaho State Constitution. And without those documents, there would be no Idaho State Republican Party platform, which has been violated at every turn by my opponent, your current legislator, Representative so-called Rick Cheatham. And would you like me to read the preamble,
Go ahead.
Riley? Okay.
It's your moment.
I really think this is probably the strongest Republican Party platform in the entire union. It's not a matter of the principles we adhere to, the principles we hold up and dear, the values, the morality, the philosophy, the worldview. We win against the left. We have won the argument many times over. And in fact, when we start to win arguments is when we've seen, unfortunately, the left gets upset, and we've seen riots all across the country, whether it be the Black Lives Matter movement, Antifa, the 99%er March on Wall Street, the No Kings protests. And I think that just shows the darker the country gets, the brighter our light shines. So here is the preamble for the Idaho State Republican Party platform. I think it's a beacon, a shining light, and all of our representatives should, A, sign the Republican Party pledge swearing to uphold this throughout all of our professional work as legislators and representatives. Okay, here we go. We are Republicans because we believe the strength of our nation lies with our faith and reliance on God, our Creator, the individual, and the family, and that each person's dignity, freedom, ability, and responsibility must be honored. We believe we are inheritors of a distinct Western civilization and that our traditional culture safeguards our identity as a free people. We believe in American exceptionalism. We believe the United States of America is unlike any other country on earth. We believe the United States Constitution is the greatest and most inspired document to govern a nation, and the Republican form of government it gives is the best guarantor of freedom in human history. We believe in equal rights, equal justice, and equal opportunity for all, regardless of race, creed, sex, age, or disability. We believe human life begins at conception and is protected by the unalienable rights endowed by our Creator, along with the fundamental right to life, and shall not be infringed upon. We believe free enterprise and encouraging individual initiative have brought this nation opportunity, economic growth, and prosperity. We believe government must practice fiscal responsibility and that taxpayers shall allow the government only the money necessary to provide constitutionally specified functions. We believe that our founding fathers gave us a government that is a servant of the people, not our master. The proper role of government is to provide for the people only those critical functions which individuals or private organizations cannot themselves perform. We believe the most effective, responsible, responsive government is government closest to the people, and the sovereignty of the state must be protected. That government is best, that governs least. We believe Idahoans must protect the principles and values that have made us strong. We believe Idahoans value and should preserve our national strength and pride while working to promote peace, freedom, and human rights throughout the world. We believe the protection of individual rights is upheld when personal responsibility for behavior is exercised. And finally, we believe the Republican Party is the best vehicle for translating these ideals into positive and successful principles of government. So folks, the reason I wanted to share that with you guys and your audience is I think that's lost on a lot of Republicans in our area, this side of the state especially. They forget the oath that they were supposed to take to uphold and defend this platform. And again, we have won the argument. I just read it to you. That's the argument. It's the exact opposite of the Democrat Party platform in every way. It's a matter of having the integrity of actually upholding that and living that as a legislator, as a representative of Idahoans.
That's great. That's great. So as we look at the platform, we look at a lot of, there's a governor that's exposed some pretty nefarious things that have happened about 9 years ago when the Democrats started to infiltrate the Republican Party and running as Republicans. You got to give it to the Democrats, nationally especially, but they're very good at offense. Republicans seem to only play defense, and oftentimes we're not very good at it. But as we look at the Democrats that they've infiltrated, so much of what we do, I mean, as we look at Mike Seville, he's about as communist as there is on the platform, and I don't even know how he gets on the Republican platform.
Yes.
It's disgraceful.
He just signed his name on the Republican registry. That's how.
That's right. Until the party can really tighten up. I think they tried to defend themselves a little bit against this infiltration from the opposition that you mentioned, Riley, with closing the primaries. But the Democrats just took the next step and registered as Republicans. I think there's more that can be done, and I think we just need more conservatives, authentic, genuine Republicans to run this party and to run our state government for the extra work to be done to protect ourselves from the subterfuge, the infiltration, and the mockery that the Democrats are trying to make of our party.
So to me, Seville is not the issue here. He's just a candidate. He's in his 80s. He's a disruptor. So as we look at what we're doing next, we got to look at Rick Cheatham. Rick Cheatham has been in office how long? Do you know how long he's been there?
2023 was his first legislative term. He was elected in 22. Maybe he was appointed and then elected.
Last election, it was his first term?
20. So this legislative session that just ended a few weeks ago was his fourth legislative session. So he's technically been there just over 3 years, I guess, roughly.
Oh, I thought he'd been there longer. He's done a lot of damage in a few short years. Looking at his voting record, he votes with Democrats about 77% of the time?
Yeah, 77 to 79, depending on which record you're looking at. Yep.
Okay. We've got a lot of bills that are important to Idahoans. Gun rights bills that are still being disclosed and shuttered and shelved. Guthrie is expert at that. Guthrie is another one we've got to replace, and we'll discuss that next week when we have Dave Worley here. But anyway, what else can you tell us?
Well, if you guys don't mind, I can run through some of the highlights of Mr. Cheatham, just to show that we're not using hyperbole or slander when we say that our opposition, the Democrat Party, has infiltrated our party. Or take it a step further, progressives have infiltrated the conservatives. The pagans have infiltrated the Christians. The socialists have infiltrated the capitalists. The globalists have infiltrated the constitutionalists. In a nutshell, the Democrats have infiltrated the Republicans. The left have infiltrated the right. And here's some proof, if you don't mind. House Bill 179 was ranked choice voting. You guys remember that from 2 years ago, Prop 1. This was Biden-era deliberate legal election interference. It was the attempt of the left on the national stage, as well as the state level, to turn our red state blue overnight without having to win one heart or one mind. It was eventually put through the referendum process, and it went down in flames by the grace of God to the tune of 70 to 30. Idahoans voted this thing down. They saw through it. Rick Cheatham was one of the few Republicans to vote alongside all the Democrats for this. House Bill 710A, if you remember, just maybe 3 years ago, roughly, House voted with the Democrats, did Rick Cheatham, against moving lewd content or pornography out of the children's section and the young teen section of public libraries all over this state.
And if I'm not mistaken, so did Dan Garner and
Yes.
Jim Guthrie.
Yes,
They all voted on that one to leave the stuff in our libraries.
that's right. All three of our representatives in District 28, yes. And I made it to a town hall at the time. Pocatello was one of the cities most inundated with this pornographic material. Mayor Blad, who called himself a Republican, was a big advocate for it, for keeping this stuff in the libraries. And I saw up to 20 pictures that librarians themselves had raised the alarm over. If these were not illustrations with ink and lead and on paper, if these were not drawings, then everybody involved with the making of these books would have gone to prison for the rest of their lives. This was not only, it was teen porn. It wasn't just porn, it involved teenagers. And it was being advanced, again, at the height of the Biden era, by its proponents as LGBTQ plus education.
Well, this topic is a really personal topic to me because I know personally youth at the school that were introduced to porn by the librarian at the schools, at the junior high schools. And it's a very personal thing to me to have this issue, and for those three men to try to vote that down was an absolute disgrace. I remember sending emails to every one of them, telling them how disgusted I was in that vote.
Good for you, yes.
Okay.
And you weren't the only one, by all means. Okay, House Bill 135, Rick Cheatham voted with the Democrats against ending welfare benefits for illegal immigrants. Taxpayer welfare benefits. You guys have been paying attention to the national news in the last few months. I was fascinated when I found out Minnesota, the fraud, the tens of billions that have been funneled out of that state. It was done primarily through two state legislative acts. One was welfare for illegal immigrants in conjunction with Medicaid expansion. It was that 1-2 punch that allowed all the fraud to take place. Now we're seeing it in California. I think we'll see it in every blue state. And to some extent, you can probably find it in every state, period. But Mr. Cheatham also voted in conjunction with taxpayer welfare benefits to illegal immigrants. He did vote last year for Medicaid expansion. You've got Senate Bill 1023A and House Bill 472. Mr. Cheatham voted with Democrats in favor of government-mandated vaccines, undermining, of course, our medical autonomy. This one is crazy. So I don't know if I've told you guys my story, and I won't go into all of it. Misty and I fled the greater Puget Sound area. We lived north of Seattle. I worked as a Teamsters union member and a route sales rep for a Fortune 500 company. I worked on the University of Washington campus, who was my largest customer, 4 days a week for about a decade. I had seen and debated with these Marxists, and they were proud socialist, communist, Marxist, leftist, progressives, whatever you want to call them, most of whom were professors. And I did business with these people for a decade. So here I am coming up throughout all of my 20s and about half of my 30s. And I knew these people intimately, did business with them multiple times a week. And I kind of sharpened my own constitutionalist, Christian, conservative, capitalist worldview against their socialism. Some of these guys were worthy opponents in debate. You know that you're right, you know they're wrong. But that doesn't mean you can prove it, because these guys are, 3 times your age, they're well-read. And so I would go back often, lick my wounds, do my research if I felt that I had lost a debate against one of these professors. Not to mention, I'd go back to the loading dock at 6 o'clock at night, and my union shop steward was also a self-professed socialist. And so he had his little group of guys, and I would have my group of guys. We did this for a decade. It was just constantly arguing the left and making sure I not only understood my worldview, but could explain it well, and by knowing our enemy. 2020 hit, and I knew exactly what this was. As the Chop Chaz zone in Seattle was taking place, and BLM and Antifa were burning down our city, at the same time, we had all these extra constitutional vaccine and mask mandates and COVID restrictions. Then you had the election, and that was such a crazy year. And I knew what this was. A lot of people thought it was George Floyd, or it was whatever the news was saying it was. No, this was the people I'd spent a decade doing business with and debating, and they were done talking. They just decided to start burning down the city because they felt that they were losing power after Trump's first term, which of course they were. Anyway, my youngest daughter moved out of the house. My wife and I said, we're out of here. We took advantage of the one redeeming quality in the Seattle area at that time, which was the crazy housing market. We sold our house. We took 3 separate vacations in as many months all across the Gem State. We visited over 50 cities until we landed in Power County, and which didn't remind us of Western Washington in any way, shape, or form. There's one traffic light in the whole county. So my point is, COVID changed everything for me. And to see Mr. Cheatham 3 years after COVID, wanting to bring this back, government mandated vaccines and mask mandates, after he experienced COVID the way we did, all of our loss of rights and the disrespect that we suffered under that from our elected officials. So that one is extra problematic for me. House Bill 376 amended state law to prevent most gun-free zones on public property, strengthening concealed carry rights. Mr. Cheatham was one of only 2 Republicans who voted with every Democrat for that. I believe there's been a few bills where there was only 2 Republicans that voted for it, and it's either Mr. Garner in our same legislative district, or Dustin Manwaring in Legislative District 29, right down the road. That's Pocatello proper. Those 2, Cheatham and Manwaring, are often the only 2 Republicans that vote for something that every Democrat voted for. So, and then there's House Bill 93, of course. That one made all the headlines this year, and that was school choice, or as I like to call, parental choice. Listen, who owns our kids, the hearts and minds of our children, and who's in charge of our wallets? To me, it goes to the very fundamental understanding of our Constitution and what it means to be an American versus most other countries in the world. We are autonomous. It is up to us to teach our kids how we want to, and it's up to us to spend our money on their education how we want to. They do not belong to the Idaho Education Association, these public sector unions who really, they went all out against this bill. They took it to the Supreme Court and lost handily. I mean, and now they're having to pay all the legal fees because the Supreme Court said, you guys never had a case here. This was a blatant power grab. They're losing their power, and so they went for broke. And they really did try to make the argument that your kids don't belong to you, they belong to them. And then finally, we got House Bill 557, voted against a measure that would prohibit local governments from enacting or enforcing anti-discrimination ordinances exceeding state law. In other words, you hear this, and it's kind of a gaslight from Mr. Cheatham, from Mr. Guthrie, and from Mr. Garner. You probably hear it in our legislative district more than any other district in the state, and it's this term, local control. They say it all the time when they're defending some egregious left-wing bill. Local control. We're Republicans. Don't we believe in local control? And it's almost like it's a Jedi mind trick. They just think you're supposed to go, oh, yes, local control. What they're talking about here is local DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. They want Boise and Pocatello and maybe Idaho Falls to be able to make their own standard for protected classes and ultra woke special favoritism. And the Republicans in the state say, no, our state is sovereign. Not necessarily your town, not necessarily your district, your city. It's our state that is sovereign.
I mean, if our counties were sovereign, we could have our own death penalty.
That's right. Yes, exactly.
I asked David Gilley about that, when I was running for sheriff, and he's like, the state is sovereign, the counties are not, so you can't have your own death penalty in your county. So.
Yes, case in point. That's exactly right. And they wanted their own DEI protections. We got House Bill 704 voted against establishing requirements for employers to verify the lawful work status of employees. That was just a month ago.
So do I need to get my ice hat on?
Yes, I think you do. I love that you have an ice hat, Riley. Yeah, so I mean, that's E-Verify. Voted with the Democrats on that. House Bill 607 would prohibit people from using public restrooms and changing areas that do not align with their biological sex. Rick Cheatham voted to allow men to use the restroom with your daughter and your granddaughter. And finally, House Bill 242. This is just Man Waring and Pocatello and Rick Cheatham. We're the only two Republicans to vote for this, alongside every Democrat. House Bill 242 voted with Democrats to allow minors to be taken across state lines for an abortion without parental consent. At some point, gentlemen, and this is the whole thesis of my whole campaign, if it walks like a Democrat, if it talks like a Democrat, if it votes overwhelmingly as a Democrat, then it is a Democrat. Period, end of story. That's it.
So we have a lot of rhinos in our county. We have a lot of elitists in our county that would promote from our Republican committee these people. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that we as conservatives, constitutionalists, those of us who believe in the Constitution and our conservative principles, I think that we way outweigh and outnumber those that are the elitists that would restrict our voting ability and try to push forward their agenda, even in our own county. I mean, this is not something, as a precinctman, way back when, I had a really terrible experience. And in fact, a person from Malad, from Power County, came into our precinct meeting and told us that he was going to tell us how to vote. And so there's a lot of shenanigans that go on at this level, but we've got to get out, ladies and gentlemen, on May 28th?
19th, sir.
May 19th.
Yep.
May 19th.
Early voting starts April 27th.
May 19th. Get out and vote for the primaries. We got to get James Lamborn through. We've got to get rid of Rick Cheatham. Sadly, Dan Garner is going unopposed. We need to get rid of Dan Garner. For those of you in Power County that are watching this, you'll see their mug shots on every bench throughout the county. They have got so much money. They've even got billboards that are promoting themselves. When you go through and you go past all these signs with 8 different people voting, you can guarantee that those are the corrupt ones that are all in their little cadre of what they're doing. I think it has Bedke and Little and all those people. Those are not conservative that run our principles and our philosophies. And we want James Lamborn to get pushed through. We want him to succeed so that he can represent District 28 responsibly and constitutionally. That's what we're after.
Amen.
Jason, you got anything? Take the microphone and speak up.
Well, I heard something pretty funny the other day that the Communist Party of Idaho endorses Brad Little because he scares them less than his opponents. So what does that tell you?
Fitzpatrick is a great guy.
I think that's the guy that they're afraid of.
Yes, I had dinner with him a couple weeks ago. He's fantastic. He's got my vote.
But I mean, that came right from the communists. Like they said, yes, we endorse Brad Little.
You can't make this stuff up.
Right?
It's crazy. Yeah. And, if I can just say this, there's hope. You've never met a more optimistic guy than me. What I just read to you is some dark stuff. What we've experienced in recent years, especially, is some dark stuff. But there is hope. And our hope is in our Constitution. It's in our faith, Christianity. It is in our conservatism. It's faith, family, freedom, God, guns, guts. It's a culture. Is conservatism, and it's common sense. And it is in our economic system, which, despite any flaws, the left likes to point out it's the best economic system in the world. It is free market capitalism. We've got hope. We've just got to have the guts and the faith to go out there and shout our message to the rooftops until enough people wake up. And I think they have, gentlemen. That's the good news.
You got anything else you want to say?
Yeah, I got one question. So in the past, the state of Idaho has been fairly, fiscally responsible, and seemed to have money to pay for, education, that sort of thing. One thing I hear is that there's not enough money to expand our prison systems, which is very concerning. There's not enough beds at the state penitentiary, and so they're shipping inmates out, which is going to possibly make lighter sentences for people that probably should be behind bars. Do you have any idea what has contributed to the lack of funds all of a sudden?
Generally, on sort of a macro level, what's contributed to it is, again, an abandonment of fiscal responsibility on the part of the majority in this state. We are a red state, and we need to act like it. You see a lot of people shriek and howl when they start talking about Doge coming into the state of Idaho, and really start to go through the balance sheets of all these executive branch bureaucracies. That's where all this money is being funneled out, all this illegal stuff. It's through the executive branch bureaucracies. And so we need to shed a light on that. You heard Governor Little earlier this year, I guess it was probably the end of last year or the beginning of this year, in his State of the State address. We're about to breach our budget, and it's law in Idaho State to have a balanced budget because the spending's been so out of control. And Mr. Little said, I want to see cuts across the board except for public education. That's the one sacred sow in Idaho State, is no cuts in public education. And I don't think you need to be a brain surgeon to realize, again, knowing what we know about the teachers' unions especially, that's probably the first place we should be looking to balance our budget. Look, these government programs are there for a reason, whether it's Medicaid, whether it's the SNAP program, whether it's food stamps or public education. They're there to serve people who truly need it. And the only way to save these programs is to get rid of the waste, fraud, and abuse within them. And any conservative who stands up and says, let's look into this so we can save these government programs for the people who need them, and then you get the Democrats screaming, oh, you just hate poor people. You just hate kids. You just hate the underprivileged and the underserved. And you hate teachers. And no, we love teachers. My oldest daughter is a public school teacher. And so, again, we just want fiscal responsibility. We should, as conservatives, as a red state, run our budget the way we run our own family finances or our own business finances. It's that simple. So.
Great. Anything else? Great. Your Second Amendment rights, everything is solid there. We're not worried about that. He's 100% in Second Amendment rights. And thankfully, Idaho is a concealed carry state now, and we've got castle law, but they're trying to change that even at the legislative arena right now. I've seen that being documented. Guthrie has done some pretty crappy things on blocking a couple bills to get there to protect that. So as we look at across the board, we've got some real fiscal responsibility issues to take care of, and only through constitutional conservative principles are we going to maintain that. I know this video has been long, but I wanted to introduce James Lamborn and make sure that you guys understood who he was, so you're comfortable getting out and voting for him. Rick Cheatham is not one that represents us in any manner, shape, or form. For those of you in Power County that I know so well, get out there and vote for James as well. Anytime you see your benches in those counties, those are the three guys you do not want to vote for. That's the message that I have. So ultimately, and I'm calling on all the Lions out there that want to fight for what's going on. We've got to get active. We've got to start making a move to vote in principled men and women that are going to protect our rights and our constitutional privileges. So, anything else, Jason?
Good.
James?
No, sir. Thank you both for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. And next week, we got David Worley that's supposed to come in and do the same thing. David Worley also is a fantastic candidate that we have coming. He's going to be running against Guthrie. So we've got some real momentum, and we've got to push these good men through. And that's all I have for now. Thank you, everybody, for listening through this whole thing. And thank you, Jason, for being the eye candy. And all the stuff that we need. And from all of us, our hearts are towards the Constitution, and we have no patience for the rhinos that want power. That's not what we're after. We're after constitutional freedoms upheld and maintained, and the rhinos be damned. We don't have any use for you. I was going to start naming names, but I guess that's probably better off not to. So I'll be better than that, and we'll sign off here. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.